Hello everyone, this is Remleiz from 40k Theories, and welcome to this new episode of Adeptus Podcastus. Joining me as always is Tactica Imperialis.
Hello everyone.
And joining us as our guest this week is the other half of 40k Theories, Mama Homebrew herself, Naerina.
Hello, dearies.
Now, before we continue, I just want to point out that if I just randomly disappear partway through this episode, it's because my internet's playing up like hell today, so I'm not bawling out, it's just like, I don't know if it's my router or if it's just Virgin Media doing crap or whatnot, or just someone digging up a line, renovating the road or something. I don't know, but just forewarning.
That's all right.
I've got Virgin Media and I've not had any issues with my Wi-Fi, but fair enough, good to know.
Is it just a thing in your area in general, or like...
It might be, I don't know. It could just be my router's going or something, I don't know. But we'll find out soon enough. Yeah.
Mm. Weren't you supposed to be mechanicus at some point?
There's only so much I can do with the resources I have to hand.
True. Sorry to interrupt you, dearie. Go ahead, Neve.
I wasn't talking.
Oh, you weren't talking. Goodness gracious. I thought it was you. It was such a Neve kind of, like, intonation to the words.
Fair enough. In the news this week, there is quite a bit. So where shall we start?
Models. Personally, because
yes.
basically there's been a metric ton, and by that I mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different rules updates for 10th edition this fortnight. And we could spend some time hyper-analysing all of them, but it's worth noting that I've only picked up 9th edition again to teach at Warhammer Club. Rem has played less games than he has fingers, and I think Naerina's the same. So there's only so much number crunching we can do.
Well, I have played more total games than 10, I will be honest. This edition, though. No. Sorry, I thought you just meant in general. It's like, excuse me.
Rem's like, I've played 11 games, thank you very much.
10.5.
Fair,
no, in all seriousness, I don't know how many games I've been playing it, because I've been playing since like 1997, so I kind of lost track.
Yeah, that's fair.
Let's call it 10.5.
So, where I would like to start is with the Tyranids, the Von Ryan's Leaper.
Ooh.
So,
oh yeah,
it's basically like Death Leaper and Lictors on crack.
Yeah, fun fact, this is actually a callback to 3rd edition.
It is?
Explain.
Basically, in the 3rd edition Nid Codex, it had a like an evolutionary tree for all the different types of bioforms. And it shows that the Von Ryan's Leaper is actually a highly evolved form of Hormagaunt.
Ooh.
I suppose I can see what you mean with the scything talons being the way they are, though they remind me much more of Lictors, to be totally honest.
But apparently they're a different genus, because you got the Gaunts and the Warrior genus splitting off to form 2 different branches on the tree. So...
yeah, so these are a squad unit of ambush predators. So not like Lictors in a way, because Lictors act alone. These will fulfill a slightly different role in terms of ambush. Though, to be honest, it is kind of going to tread on the Lictor's toes quite a lot. So we'll see if it's just a replacement for the Lictor and Death Leaper, or whether it really has got a unique role to fill that the Lictor can't.
Oh, I hope it has a unique role.
I just think it does.
Yay. Just makes the lore more interesting and, gives it kind of wider variety of things one can do.
Absolutely. Though, to be honest, the other model revealed this week for 10th edition is a model that has been around for decades, but only really just properly redone. The Terminator Librarian, because they've redone Terminators, so now they can actually talk about Terminator armor again. Because, Terminator armor has been quietly shushed away for about 2 editions. Now they can talk about it again. And so they've done a Terminator Librarian upgrade, who is basically a Grey Knight, because he's got a wrist-mounted Stormbolter, and all of that. But, it's a really cool model.
And he has magical nipples.
And that...
Yes, indeed. Like hearing these 2 teachers just like staring at the wall, like, yes, starting student, yes, indeed.
Though one interesting thing that someone did point out is that some of the runes on his armour, they're actually Colchizian.
Oh?
As in,
I know what
word
Colchis
bearers.
is.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got a grape in my mouth. I do know what Colchis is. It's just like, what?
Yeah, someone actually saw this on the word bearers transfer sheet that you can get from the Games Workshop website, and it actually has some of the runes that are present on this Terminator's armor. Hang on, let's see if I can dig it up for you 1 second.
Ooh, would be cool. Also, why was that Terminator armor all hushed up?
Because you couldn't have Primaris Terminators. Basically,
True.
it wasn't that they actually just deliberately suppressed anything, but basically because every new model being released was a Primaris,
Yeah.
if you couldn't be a Primaris, then you didn't exist as far as the release and news team were concerned. So
yeah, true.
now Primaris can wear
Sure,
Terminator armor, so problem solved.
True, very true. Yeah, I'm just still, yet again, as per usual, I'm just looking at the posing and the paint job, and just like, it's pretty. It's just so pretty. And the kind of light effects on those magical nipples, for example, or those runes, that looks very good. This kind
Clearly, someone at Heavy Metal has had a lot of fun with it. It's worth noting as well that there are no chapter symbols anywhere. The idea being that any Space Marine player can pick this up and there will be no issue in terms of using them, which is the way it should be, to be totally honest.
Well, you could argue it's got the Exorcist chapter symbol.
And I'm there like, isn't that an Ultramarine you over there?
That's a transfer.
Oh, right.
Anyway, some of the runes, these white ones here, are on his armor.
God,
I'm going to have
whoever's
to
doing
link
that
them
clearly didn't have
at
enough
some
time
point.
on their hands. That is
Right.
very, very small. But no, to be honest, given that Colchissian, they communed with the old gods and spoke in the language of the warp, arguably to commune and talk with warp entities, it makes sense that Colchissian language is like able to link to the warp. So I suppose it makes sense in that regard. It's just surprising to see it on an Imperial, I guess.
It is kind of dodgy. So like, hell yes, this is the language used, in regards to the Chaos Gods on an Imperial model kind of thing.
But the warp and the Chaos gods are the same thing. So
Well,
Is there an upcoming video about this or something?
I mean,
I know the warp exists without the Chaos gods, and the Chaos gods don't exist without the warp. I'm aware they're not the same thing, but at the current age of the universe, as it stands in the 40k universe, the warp and the Chaos gods are completely intertwined with one another.
yeah. So I was going to say,
yeah.
like, the warp is the Chaos Gods. I think Gork and Mork might have something to say about that.
Point.
Yeah, that would be an
And the
interesting
Emperor.
twist, that them being Chaos Gods. Well, then again, Emperor, yeah.
Oh,
The God of
yeah.
Order.
Yes. However,
something.
if you like your librarians and force axes a bit less ostentatious and over the top, and Primaris available, then the Horus Heresy has you sorted, as they have baby librarian in power armor with a baby force axe. It really feels like it's just, hey, here's the Terminator librarian. Here's the Terminator librarian's younger, less ornate cousin.
Like,
And,
don't talk to me or to my son ever again, meme.
Kind of, yes, to be totally honest. Like the Force Axe in particular, just like such a downgrade. But as a standalone model, if you ignore the Terminator librarian that we've just seen, the Heresy librarian is good because it's obviously going to be very stripped down, as it's an Imperial console when librarians weren't really allowed to be a thing. They kind of had to be quite subtle.
Yeah. Oh, God.
And how else to be subtle than wearing bright yellow power armor with a blue helmet in the Imperial Fists
I mean, if you're in Sweden.
with a glowing blue hand?
Magical Swedes? Hi, Swedes. Yeah, let's get it.
No, it's not magic. It's sorcery, so it's sweetsery or something.
Sweetsery. Oh, God. Yes, indeed. Well, yeah, I really.
Just come from.
I showed Remleiz that there's a soundboard on Discord now.
Oh God.
I think I may have released something chaotic into the world.
Yes, and most likely the audio is not being picked up because we're
Of course
recording
it's
audio,
not.
not Discord. So every
course
time it
it's
happens
not.
and we get confused, the comments are going to be like, "What the hell is Tack on about?"
Yeah, welcome to Adeptus Podcastus. We hear voices now, or noises, mostly made by Remleiz.
Indeed.
But
Right.
yeah, I love the fact that everyone's like, stop there, like, you criminal scum, just holding their hand out.
Yeah, it's very difficult to do psychers in an interesting, unique way, because I think one of the models that really sticks with me is a really cool psyker. I think it's the traitor librarian, the esoterist, who's got like a demon bursting out of their book or out of their hand or something.
Ooh,
Oh, yeah, that's the
cool.
Terminator armored one, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a
'Cause
picture of it?
I might do. I think they linked it in the article about the librarian, and I've closed it. So if you give me a second, I'll have a look.
Yeah,
If it's
take
the
your time.
one that I think it is. No, it isn't. That's a different librarian entirely. No, there is a traitor librarian or Thousand Suns librarian or something that really does have like a demon coming out of him.
It was actually a Night Lord.
Was there a Night
Night Lord? Cool. Okay, that is badass.
Yeah, because the challenge with psychers is modelling psychic powers in a way that doesn't look stupid is hard, especially if the magic is not fire. Like, if it's fire, you can kind of get away with it. Anything else, like lightning, is really hard to make it look convincing, especially with the painting side of things. And a lot of the stuff they do is like mind crush and throw rock and bewitch the enemy and all of this sort of stuff. You can't
Yeah,
really
true.
model that. So just having them like in a thinking pose, like the Phobos librarian who's got his hand to his head like he's thinking, or with a hand outstretched because they're casting a psychic power. It's kind of the only way that most psychers are done. And I know there are exceptions, but like it's the way most Eldar psychers are done. It's the way most Space Marine psychers are done. It's the way most Chaos psychers are done. It's pretty much the way every psyker is done, with a few exceptions, but not all.
Yeah. A shame, really, but understandable.
Yeah. I mean, AOS has the same problem with its wizards. Like, usually they're doing something with a staff, or they're just casting a spell with their hand. I mean, even like Mr. Psyker himself, Magnus the Red. Take Magnus, both 30k and 40k. Magnus in 30k, hand outstretched, surrounded by a magical vortex on his scenic base. That works. 40k Magnus, he's just holding something in his hand, if that.
Yeah.
I just remembered there was wasn't there like a wizard for like the Luminev who's like sitting cross-legged while he's being like lifted up by like a tornado of rocks or something.
Yes, the Alarith Stone Mage, and the other one is the
Cool.
Huracan Wind Mage who's riding a cloud.
That's so neat. Well,
Yeah.
our cloud riders in 40k, god damn it.
That was Age of Sigmar.
Yeah, but
Indeed.
we could have them. Why not?
Because Goku would sue.
Well, then we hit Goku in the face, go Imperium.
That's the point. Tak, have you seen Dragon Ball Z at all?
Bits.
Okay, that's progress. Sorry. Anyway.
No, it's fine. So we've got two real options. I'm not going to really talk about the Seraphon stuff. Like, I'll read the rules myself for the new Seraphon. I think we can either do all the 40k new rules stuff, or we could do a quick sidestep over to other game territory, talk about not Doom, Boltgun, or Britannia, if you like.
Flip a coin.
I'm here like I want to talk about everything.
Let's go for Boltgun.
Yes, so this is a video game that is coming out on May the 23rd. Warhammer 40,000 Boltgun. You play the role of a Stern Guard veteran, voiced by Rahul Kohli, who actually does have a 40k army of his own, or at least a bit. He has made a start on some models. He's got some Kill Team, he's got Age of Darkness, he's got Cadia Stans, Leads of Votan, and just bits and bobs. He's got a massive pile of shame, as well as a few models done.
I don't know who he is.
No, he's a voice actor who's done
Right, fair enough.
other stuff. My brain has just completely gone blank as to what he's done. Give me a second while I go have a Google.
Yeah, you go and have a Google, and I'm here just like trying not to sing out loud that big iron on his head, but the Boltgun version, because, like, the first time you mentioned, hey, let's talk about Boltgun, I'm like, to the hive of Agua Fria came a stranger one grim day.
God.
It's a good song!
Yeah, but having played too much Fallout New Vegas, it...
Understandable.
Yeah. He was in Supergirl for 2 episodes. That doesn't really count.
Supergirl.
He was in iZombie for 70 episodes, apparently. He was in Fortnite Chapter 3, and he played a character in Gears 5, apparently.
Right.
Neat.
So, bits and
So he's got an accomplished resume in any case,
Indeed.
even though I've never heard of him. But
I'm here as a voice actor, like, I wish I could do that. That would be so cool.
Yeah. So, yes, they are for... Sorry.
So I will say this about the screenshots from the game. While I appreciate the 2D sprite aesthetic of like the enemies and the weapons and stuff, I wish they did the same thing with the backgrounds, because the backgrounds are just normally 3D renders, as opposed to being like the old, pixelated pseudo 3D like you get in the original Doom kind of thing. I wish they went that route.
I see what you're saying. That
instead of going if you're going to go for the classic retro shooter aesthetic, go all the way.
They are actually pixelated, but they are just more rendered looking.
It looks too clean. Like it should have gone for something like hang on, let's see if I can get a screenshot from like the original Doom.
I know what it looks like, dearie.
No, but I mean just like as an actual visual comparison for the two. I mean,
yeah, right. I'm just looking at this.
I don't want the bloody Sonic the Hedgehog E series. Thank you very much.
Either way, though, like whether we can quibble about the consistency of its aesthetic, I did watch the trailer, and I mean, it definitely feels like they've got 40K's ideas down. Like Doom and 40K have always been 2 universes that have sat side by side with one another quite cozily without ever crossing over, and this feels like a natural extension for 40K video games to do Doom, a Doom-like game that isn't Fire Warrior. So yeah, I think it's a really good choice to go for carving through hordes of demons. A Sternguard veteran gives you great flexibility in terms of weapons as well. I'm
actually generally surprised they didn't go for a Primaris, considering they like to, hype up Primaris for pretty much anything. But considering that they seem to be taking less of an emphasis on 10th edition, that might be why.
Yeah, like, you can tell aesthetically that they're modern Chaos Space Marines and the like, but I think it's a retro game, so it's a retro model.
True! Yeah, that's very clever.
At least, maybe, anyway.
I'm still kind of disappointed in the fact that the Bolter is based off the modern version of the Bolter. If they wanted to go retro, they should have gone for the 2nd edition Banana Magazine Bolter.
I mean, if you look at the title image of the game, it has that.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
If you look at the box art, it has that gun with the banana.
Yeah, I know, but it should have been in the game itself as opposed to...
You can't see the clip. You can't even see
Indeed.
it.
No, but you can see the aesthetic difference of the actual thing, though, is the point.
Right, okay. So
perhaps it's an unlockable thing after you've beat the game. Or beaten. Yeah, that's how
Who knows?
verbs work.
Either way, it looks like it will be quite fun to have a blast through if you have the time for video games. So, May 23rd.
I guess you could say it would be a bit of a blast.
Ha 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 ha.
Yeah, it's available on current and last gen PlayStation. Oh, for God's sake, he's using more sound effects. It's available on current and last gen PlayStation and Xbox. It's going to Switch and PC as well. So plenty of cross-platform as well.
All right.
And speaking of a cross between retro and modern, I'm going to do Old World anyway. They did a big deep dive on Britannia, and they clarified a few things about bases.
Oh
yeah, everything's going to be on bigger bases now, aren't they?
Yes, so the new models are for Old World will be the same scale as the returning models from Fantasy. So a lot of models are being returned from Fantasy, and some are being made new, the Kislev stuff, for example. But because they don't fit very well on 20mm squares, and having ranked up High Elf Spearmen, I agree, They are going to put them onto 25mm square bases for basic infantry instead.
Yeah.
It is a small change, but it is just a slightly bigger base to make it slightly easier to rank up your models with slightly less cramping. It does say, though, realistically, it shouldn't matter if you're playing at home in casual play. It's only really for competitive that it's going to actually matter. And if you don't want to rebase them, you could just make a movement tray of the correct size, because that would cover you as well.
Yeah, I was just about thinking about that, because when I sound so old, when I was a kid, and I saw my friends playing, I think it was Warhammer Fantasy, yeah, with their armies, they had these kind of bases with which they could move their units so that they didn't have to move their miniatures one by one. And I was there oh, how clever! And that was exactly what I was thinking, if you just have the bases, I think it should cover it. And then you just said it out loud, yeah, excellent, you read my mind.
I've seen some people saying they should have taken inspiration from another tabletop game. Can't remember the name of it, but just have the old world minis on circular bases, but have special movement trays, so that way you can use the models in AOS as well, kind of thing.
Yeah, I can see the logic. I think what you might do is, if you've got AOS models that you've rebased from Fantasy, let's say, for example, the Empire stuff. Mm-hmm. You've rebased it to make Cities of Sigmar, and now they're redoing Cities of Sigmar, so you need to put your Empire stuff back onto Fantasy bases. I think you might remember Apocalypse and War of the Ring had movement trays that were circular.
Wow, circular? What?
No, as in, they were still square, but they had circular slots for each base.
Oh, right. I was like, why would you have a circle? Yeah, I was very confused for a moment.
8th edition Apocalypse and the old War of the Ring game both had movement trays in that style. So I get the feeling that people who've rebased their army for Sigmar, Daughters of Cain being another great example, with Dark Elves, with the Witch Elves, Dark Riders, Doomfire Warlocks, etc. I would like to think there will be some way to move them over to square movement trays, because, to be honest, a lot of their Sigmar bases are similar, if not bigger, compared to their fantasy ones.
Mm.
So yeah, we'll see exactly how they choose to do it. But we'll see. I think it's going to be interesting. The problem with the one that you've linked there, Rem, is that they're not ranked up straight.
No, but the concept's the same, though.
Yeah, the concept's the same. Yeah. Round holes on a square tray.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. Either way, Old World is still ticking along, and hopefully, I wouldn't be surprised. I think, obviously, this year we're getting 40k. Next year we're getting the next edition of Sigmar, as is the 3-year cycle. But rather than do another edition of Heresy, I wouldn't be surprised if the next 3-year loop is the release of Old World. So personally, I'm looking at Old World 2025 release, I think. I think they can drag it out that far, unless they're going to make Sigmar 3rd edition run for a 4th year, which I'm not opposed to, because Sigmar's in a really good place right now.
So what kind of things do you think there will be in the Old World one?
What do you mean? In terms of the box? Or the rules?
The rules.
To be honest, I don't know. I fully expect it will feel like Fantasy, but a much cleaner and smoother to run Fantasy, because for all I loved Old Fantasy when I played it very, very infrequently, but when I did enjoy playing it. But I cannot deny playing a game of Fantasy took about twice as long as playing a game of 40k, because you had all the ranking stuff, you had combat resolution that went on for hours, trying to work out how many died, and then are you in the flank, are you in the rear, do you have a charge bonus,
are you lapping round?
Yeah, all that. How many ranks have you got? Oh, but your rank bonus gets negated if you're flanked. Do you have a banner? Have you got a hero in the unit? And what effect does that have? Are you near a battle standard?
Do you have a musician?
Yeah.
Basically, how pretty is this and how pretty is that? Do you get an extra bonus for being pretty yourself? Etc., etc., etc.
Combat resolution went on for a very long time per combat. It was slow. So that probably will be streamlined a bit. I'm not expecting they'll get rid of it and go over to a system like 40k and Fantasy have done. I would expect they'll still have rank bonus, flank bonus, and the like. But I think they'll streamline that. The magic phase will probably be nerfed, if it even returns at all, because with 40k, they've got rid of the psychic phase now for 10th edition, and put each power in the relevant phase of the game: movement, shooting, combat, etc. I would be curious to see if they do the same thing, because it was very easy to exploit the magic phase with power dice and dispel dice and dispel scrolls and miscast and irresistible force. Again, it was a great system, but it was really fucking slow.
Yeah, I hope they make it more
Do you
streamlined.
remember the card system?
The card system?
No.
Yeah, we had to use a deck of cards in it as well
Why?
because it was fun. And that,
I mean,
that was like
to be
that was
sure,
back also
but-
when we had I don't know if they appeared in later editions, but I know like in 6th edition Fantasy they got rid of quite a few of the really, really powerful spells, like Curse of Years, for example.
Nope, that came back.
I came back. Oh,
Yeah.
I
think
bet
it's-
a few people had PTSD attacks. Like, oh god, not Curse of Years.
the Penumbral Pendulum, Purple Sun of Zerus, Dwellers Below,
Comet of Cassandora.
Comet of Cassandora, Chain Lightning.
Oh,
Ooh.
that reminds me. Slight tangent, but a few years ago, I actually played at a Warhammer Fantasy tournament at Warhammer World, and when I was rolling for my spells, I was playing as Lizardmen, and every spell I rolled was Comet of Cassandora for each of my wizards. Every single one had Comet of Cassandora.
Yeah, for the record, for those who don't know what that means, Comet of Cassandora, you placed a token on the battlefield at any given point you wished, and you rolled every turn to see if a comet landed and blew up.
Whoopsie.
And if it did ludicrous damage.
Yeah, and my opponent had a very, very tightly packed army.
So, how did the match end? I'm curious.
I lost.
How?
Because despite having the cold-blooded rule, I managed to fail multiple break tests in a row.
Oh dear.
And that's in spite of having the cold-blooded rule, which for those who are unfamiliar, you roll 3 dice and you basically discard the highest result for your leadership tests.
And this was back in the day when leaderships were, modified by combat resolution, which we just discussed. And it's also worth noting that if a unit ran away, it had a chance to make nearby units run away as well.
That's literally what happened. One ran away, and that caused everything else to run away.
Oh
was
god,
like,
they're
well,
running away! Wait, we need to do it too!
So literally, leadership test. Okay, roll 3 dice. Triple sixes. Triple
Well then.
sixes. Triple
Yeah,
sixes.
because
Like, why couldn't I have been
not
Comet Cassandora?
weak. They were like leadership 9s, so they weren't
Yeah.
exactly weak. It's also worth noting, I think the one change they will make to Fantasy, and I don't know how I feel about it, is in Fantasy, you may recall, you charged in the movement phase.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I get the feeling we're going to go to the 40k system because I'm going to be honest, charging in the movement phase is a pain in the arse to set up. Because basically, if you moved into charge range, your opponent had a turn to back off before you were allowed to roll your charge. And now that was fine if you're playing like a cavalry army like Britannia, but if you're playing a slow army and your opponent was like in the midfield, they could just walk backwards for a couple of turns while shooting you in the face or nuking you with magic.
I actually remember around that time when dwarves actually got a special rule. Because, if you had an enemy unit within a certain distance, your unit wasn't allowed to march.
I think so. Oh, March, by the way, was the run move, but it just counted as doubling your move characteristic. In case you didn't know.
Dwarves got to ignore that rule. So basically, regardless of how close an enemy is, they could always march.
Right.
Okay.
Not a bad
Because
mechanic.
they were only movement free.
Well,
So
understandable.
they could move to 6 every turn if they wanted, if they had close combat. The best thing they do for dwarves in like those editions was like, all you do is take dwarf crossbowmen and give them all double-handed weapons as an extra. Because they were in initiative 2, so they've got to strike last anyway. Give them double-handed weapons, they're going to hit like a fucking tank.
Oh
and they can
god,
shoot.
can we just, like, if you're not a heresy player, if you've only joined Warhammer in the last 5 years, the initiative stat Like,
God.
like, there are genuinely a large number of people playing this hobby today who have never seen an initiative stat.
Now gather around, children. Neve is going to tell you a horrifying story.
Yes, imagine having an army where what determined who fought when in combat was based on your stat line. So if you played elves against dwarves, instead of it being the Yugo-Igo system, which we're all familiar with from Age of Sigmar and 40k, with charging units fight first, if you did it in elves versus dwarves, every single unit attacked based on its initiative value. The higher initiative, the sooner you attacked. Elves were initiative...
Though in fairness, when you did charge, you did strike first.
Yes, charging units 4 first, but elves were initiative 5. Horses were initiative 3. Dwarves were initiative 2.
Why are elves faster than horses?
Lizardmen and Saurus were initiative 1.
They're just like hanging around on, warm rocks to get themselves warm enough to do stuff, I presume.
I mean, in fairness, like, Lizardmen and Saurus could generally take a beating anyway because they were like toughness 4 with a 4-up armor save because their scaly skin counted as heavy armor and they had a shield. So
all right,
4-up, unless they were Temple Guard, which they also wore light armor, so they actually got a 3-up save in total. With
Fair.
toughness 4, it's actually pretty damn strong.
Yeah,
true.
And also like it wasn't like an AP stat. Like your weapon's armor penetration value was determined by its strength. So if you were strength 4, you caused -1 to armor saves. If you were strength 5, it was -2. Unless you had the armor piercing rule, in which case that bonus was increased. So handguns, despite being strength 4, did 2 ignoring of armor, which if you didn't have a shield, ignored your entire armor as infantry.
Ouchie.
Yeah, fantasy was...
also originally applied with poison weapons as well. Like if you roll a 6 to hit, it was an automatic wound or something.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. But no, fantasy was a really, 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 really complicated game. Now that's a good thing, right up until the point where its barrier to entry is too high.
And this is why I played more time and not fantasy.
Yeah, and that was the problem. Like, 15-year-old Tack could not get good at fantasy because one other person at club played it, and we were both bad because we were like 15. So to actually get good, you needed to genuinely... It was like a fucking essay. It was a proper... Like, you do a PhD in playing fantasy properly. It was ridiculous.
The worst bit about fantasy is when they initially introduced demons as a standalone army. The army was so broken when it debuted that they actually had to launch another edition of fantasy to fix it.
A whole edition.
Yeah, demons were that broken when they debuted. Literally, and everyone was playing them because it was like the most broken, most overpowered army in the game. And like about 2 months later, they launched a new edition because it was so bad.
No wonder the old world fell.
But no, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens when New Fantasy comes back. How much old fantasy is still in the game's route? Because they've talked all this about the world building and the models and a few bits of admin. They actually haven't told us any rules yet. So I'm really curious to see how much of it feels like old fantasy and how much of it is actually borrowing off Sigmar and 40k. It's much simpler and much more successful children.
I'm going to call it right now. The star box for Old World is going to involve the Empire and Orcs and Goblins.
No, because the Empire hasn't formed.
Oh, true.
Hang on, didn't the Empire form before Bretonia, though?
It's divided. Is it the time of the 3 emperors? Either way, the Elector Council... there's no
the Elector
Empire.
Counts, whatever counts as the Empire equivalent, then.
But there isn't even a faction for it because they're not even united. I think it's going to be, because of Warhammer 3 especially, I think it's going to be Kislev and Chaos. Because there'll be brand new shiny Kislev models, and we know that. So I think they're going to do Kislev.
I think it's going to be Kislev and Orcs. And Goblins.
That works too.
We'll just have to see, and then we're just all 3 wrong, like, oh, right.
I just want to see something that doesn't involve chaos for once, because the other Forge World game is about chaos as well, because it's Imperial versus Chaos with Horus Heresy. Give us something else. Give us something else to help differentiate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. But given the fact they're making a whole new army in Kislev, the only people Kislev really fights on the regular is Chaos. Like, I know they do fight other people, but on the regular, it's Chaos, 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 with a side of Norska, which is also Chaos.
True.
Either way, though, going to be fun. Right, this Warhammer 40,000 podcast is doing a really good job of talking about Warhammer 40,000, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Nailing it.
Oh, and to put it back on tangent, did you know in Realm of Chaos, Lost and the Damned, it was revealed that the Warhammer world takes place in a 40k galaxy, and that's no longer canon now because they separated the universes via the warp, but they are still connected via the warp. We're now back to 40k.
What an interesting segue.
Indeed. I hate you.
Yeah, the audience just can't hear them. Oh, you know what this means, Rem? You'll have to edit these noises in.
Challenge accepted. No, not really.
All right, go for it.
I have no idea how to get these sounds
I'll order something
off here.
from Uber Eats for you if you do that.
I have no idea how to get the sounds off here anyway.
Indeed.
Right. Anyway.
Just be thankful I'm not doing the air horn.
True. Thank
Yeah,
God.
please just don't touch the button, okay?
Yeah, drop it.
No chocolate for you if you do.
Right, okay, so, things to discuss for 40k. One, as I said earlier with the whole fantasy magic phase thing, there is no psychic phase. There is also no morale phase.
Mm-hmm.
So, the psychic phase is now spread out across different phases. So, for example, Smite is now a ranged weapon. You use it like a shooting attack. You cast the psychic power in some way, shape or form. And then if you do, it is a gun. You roll to hit, you roll to wound, you remove models. Some have got extra effects such as Hazardous, which is basically gets hot. You roll a 1, you die kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Others, such as Veil of Time, is a passive buff. So he boosts up Terminator squads that he leads with sustained hits. That is exploding 6s, by the way. So if you roll a 6 to hit, you get an extra hit.
Cool.
On the other hand, the Orc Weird Boy has the Jump, which is a psychic ability that is cast on a 2+. If you roll a 1, you blow up. On a 2-up, you get to teleport. But their psychic power Edbanger is actually hilarious.
Oh.
Because it's one shot, hits on 4s, which is good for orcs, strength 6, AP -3, damage 1. To put that another way, that's killing every Eldar Guardian and Tau Fire Warrior on 2s. But...
Seriously?
But...
Okay, yeah.
If it leads a unit, then the strength and damage go up for every 5 models in the unit. So if you had a squad of 30, your gun would be strength 12, damage 7.
What? Ow.
However, if you have 10 or more models, then it becomes hazardous. So if you roll a 1 to hit, you blow up.
Well, that's at least they're balancing it out a bit.
Yeah, so it's quite hilarious. And to be honest, I really like the idea of using War energy to boost up that psychic power.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a great idea. Battle Shock and Morale has been clarified. So Battle Shock tests are taken in the command phase at the start of the turn. And if you fail a Battle Shock test, which is a leadership tech, roll 2d6 and must roll over or equal to your leadership, you pass. But if you fail, then you get 0 objective control, meaning models that are battle shocked cannot control an objective. Mm-hmm. They are unable to fall back properly. They have to make what's called a desperate escape, which I'm assuming is like a dangerous check. And
it does sound like it.
And you cannot use stratagems on them, meaning that if you were going to use them for some devastating combo play with your stratagems, you can't, because they're battle shocked. Critically, however, models are not removed by being battle shocked. So
yeah, I love that idea.
It isn't like AOS and current 40k, where if you fail a leadership tech, a model runs away, or 2, or 5, and then you carry on. you take some debuffs and then sit there, which is
You're
different.
deer in
again,
the
'cause-
headlights.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas in old 40k, like back in 5th, 6th, 7th, if you failed a leadership test, you ran away. Like you fell back 2d6 inches, which was a really different way of doing it as well. You retreated. So lots of nice ideas with Battle Shock, and it means that less models are going to be dying to things that aren't guns and melee, which is a good thing.
Yeah. The only thing that worries me in this whole, remember to do your spells when you have to do them thing is actually that you have to remember to do your spells when you have to do them.
They're on the card, so because they're on the unit card, if you're looking at Librarian, my Librarian's going to shoot. He's got a Stormbolt. Oh, what's that? Oh, he's also got Smite, so I should probably do that. So because you've got unit cards that you can look at, and they're probably going to be quite expensive, but if you've got them, you'll be able to just quickly look and go, what have I got to do? Oh yeah, that, and then do it.
Okay,
should be a
that's good,
little bit easier.
Yeah. A wee bit easier, yeah, absolutely. Because otherwise I'd be like, I know I have Smite, and then I have this passive thing, and which one did I have to do first? And then I have this thing over here, and what?
Indeed. It will take a little bit of getting used to, but I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Something that we mentioned in that segment is that characters join units again. They haven't done that since 7th.
Goodness gracious.
So, aura abilities, with a few exceptions, are gone. And units now are attached to by leaders. So, for example, the Primaris Lieutenant gives his unit lethal hits, which I believe is, 6s to hit auto wound.
All right.
In addition, you'll get fallback and shoot/charge, which is hilarious. But you can only attach them to certain squads, 2 of which are redacted, so I'm guessing we've got more Marines to come that the Primaris Lieutenant can lead.
Hopefully so.
Lookout Sir is gone. Basically, you have bodyguard units that they join, and basically the bodyguard unit has to die first, meaning that characters are the last models to die, and you can't tank the wounds on them, as far as it's understood.
So that should be called like the slow motion no as you take the bullet.
Indeed. But some heroes can't do that, such as Assassins, Commander Shadow Sun, etc., which give them untargetable at greater than 12-inch range.
Really?
So you can't shoot a Vindicare Assassin in a sniper match, unless you've got a sniper of your own, I guess, that ignores the rule. So, stealth units now become very, very nasty stealth heroes, because you can't shoot them until they get right next to you, which is right where Chasera wants to be.
No, naturally. And I think it's kind of like, when you think of it with logic, yeah, that's very logical. But then again, you don't want to get them to get too close to you, but you kind of have to if you want to get them, killed.
Okay, well, if you want more bullshit, some characters become this untargetable at greater than 12 inches if they are near appropriate units. So,
What?
So if Lionel Johnson is stood near to Space Marine Infantry, you can't shoot him. Which is just...
God.
To be fair, that's the rule in 9th edition too, because he's got less than 10 wounds. You can't shoot him unless it's the closest model.
Yeah, understandable, but that just sounds like the lion going like, yeah, just let me hide behind you guys for a second. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Next, tanks. Rhinos are toughness 9 now.
Ooh.
For context, the Rhino is currently toughness 6. So
Ooh.
they have made it a lot tankier, but that is done primarily to make it immune to small arms fire. Because the current problem with 9th edition is plasma solves everything. Strength 7 plasma wounds most vehicles on 4s, 3s, or at worst 5s, which means that it's got a good AP, decent damage output, and a high strength. You just used it for everything, and melter guns were pointless, and anti-infantry weapons were pointless, because it just killed fucking everything.
Oopsie fucking daisy.
Now, vehicles have been made ultra tanky. So, for example, the Repulsor, the flying Land Raider thingy, that's toughness 12.
12?
With 16 wounds and a 3-up armor save.
How do you kill that?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Because now, for example, the Hunter-Killer missile, which is just a crack missile, is now strength 14.
Just happens to be strength 14. All right.
Yeah, strength 14.
Yeah,
And
okay, fine. That's how you kill them.
And the melter rifles carried by, for example, the Eradicators, the heavy melter infantry weapons, they're strength 9 now. So they've been made more powerful and increase their damage by 2 if they're within half range. In this case, they have the melter rule. So a single melter rifle is hits on 3s, strength 9, so it wounds a rhino on 4s, and will then do potentially 8 wounds and therefore all but one-shot the thing.
Well then.
Indeed, well then.
Yes, however, the Orc Stomper is now toughness 14. I am going to get my Stomper off my parents and use it because fucking hell,
Yes.
that's hilarious.
Yes, do it.
I genuinely have not used my Stomper since like 6th, so I actually
yes.
want to do that. I think what will be interesting is we haven't seen the aircraft rules yet, in terms of like Dakar jets and the like, because currently they're terrible. So it'll be interesting to see how they balance them up to make them still feel like glass cannons, but also very hard to kill because they're hard to hit. Yeah. It's also worth noting that the twin-linked rule is back. So from 5th edition and 7th edition, twin-linked meant rerolls to hit. It now means rerolls to wound.
Oh.
And
Really?
melee weapons can be twin-linked. So take, for example, the Aggressor, which has 2 Power Fists. It now has a twin-linked Power Fist, which is strength 8, wounding on therefore 4s or 2s, depending on whatever it is, but it re-rolls to wound.
Okay.
So, yes. Also, rending is back in the form of the rule Devastating Wounds. So, if you roll a 6 to wound, you do a Devastating Wound instead. Equals the damage characteristic of mortal wounds.
Yeah, makes sense.
Assault weapons are advance and shoot, as they are now. But heavy weapons, instead of it being move and take a penalty, it's if you stand still, you get a boost. So take the Boltgun, because the Boltgun is an assault heavy weapon. I know, that sounds oxymoronic, hear me out.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, how are you supposed to operate that with these rules?
So, the bolt rifle makes 2 shots, 3 up to hit. If you move with it, you hit on 3s. If you advance with it, you can still shoot and hit on 3s. If you stand still, you hit on 2s.
Cool.
Yeah, bolters hit on 2s now if you don't move.
And I'm here like, yeah, should I move? Should I not? I don't know. Let's see.
But if I read it correctly, there doesn't seem to be a downside to assault. Because it used to be if you advanced and fired an assault weapon, you had a -1 penalty to your hit roll. But at the current reading of this rule, it makes it sound like there's no point to moving at normal speed. So if you are a Space Marine player who runs around with bolters, if you're not charging, you may as well be advancing everywhere, sprinting around like a bunch of lunatics, firing your rapid fire weapons and the most run and gun thing imaginable. Because why would you move at normal speed if advancing comes with no penalty?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be running around with that.
Absolutely. Also, they did about transports. So, good news. You don't have to be limited. So, to just give an example, that power Terminators may not actually be limited anymore. Aggressors can ride in a Land Raider. The Primaris units can ride in a regular Space Marine tank now.
Hooray.
I know.
I mean, it took 2 editions.
It only took 2 editions. Centurions can go in a repulsor at the cost of 3 models, if you wish.
People use Centurions.
And here's the best bit if you're an Orc player. You disembark after moving.
Ooh.
So this was the BS of 8th and 9th. When your tank moved, you weren't allowed to disembark unless you had a certain rule like assault vehicle. Meaning that you would have to pull up, park, wait for your opponents to do their shooting phase and therefore blow up your tank, and then you might have some survivors left to do a charge. Not anymore. You can now pile out on the turn your vehicle blasts forward, and then lay down the firepower. But you can't charge unless you get out before the tank moves. The Fish of Fury is back, baby. That's a Tau gimmick of driving around in devilfishes and shotgunning people. It's going to be hilarious.
What have you been up to? I've just been doing like these kind of drive-bys with my bolters and etc. Perhaps not bolters, but still.
Pulse rifles.
Also, transports have the firing deck ability if they allow embarked passengers to shoot. The battle wagon, for example, has firing deck 22.
Ooh.
Which means 22 models are allowed to shoot out of it. And here's the hilarious bit. Those weapons are counted as being equipped by the tank when you shoot them.
So which basically means?
Meaning, if you use a mech boy to boost up the tank, you can give 22 tank busters with rocket launchers +1 to hit when shooting out of the battle wagon.
Woo!
Now, you wouldn't actually do that, but you could. Or to put it another way, that's 22 flash gits that hit on 3s now.
You saying you wouldn't actually do that, and me going here like, yeah, I never, ever would I try anything like this. Just like,
no,
oh God.
there is, with certain vehicles that have high firing deck counts and the ability to buff up their tanks, there is going to be some absolute bullshit. And I'm looking particularly at the Guard, because if they have high firing decks, they can just carry around 2 to 3 melter guns per tank, boost up the tanks, and let the good times roll. I'm also looking at Orcs, because, hello, firing deck 22 says hi.
Indeed.
And I'm also looking at the AdMech with their boats, because, you know, the tech priests will tinker with them, and suddenly all your rad rifles or your arc rifles are getting the boost. Yes, there is going to be some absolute hilarity.
If nothing else, a very good entrance.
Yeah, there's going to be so much fun. Also, you can give some tanks fire support. So this is something the Eldari Falcon gets. After the Falcon has fired, you can pick a unit it shot, and the unit that disembarked gets rerolls to wound against that unit to allow you to coordinate fire between your transport and your disembarking unit.
What?
There is going to be some absolute cheesy bollocks going on with transport vehicles, because at the minute, transports are just, the faster they go, the better, and then they deliver. Oh God, Venoms are going to be so stupid, and it's hilarious, and I'm here for it. Like,
Warhammer 40k, the drive-by edition.
No, that was 5th. Parking lot was 5th. But
oh, right.
I think with the increase in the weapon damage and all of that, I don't think we're going to see a return to, like, parking lot cheese. But the fact that transport vehicles actually do something useful other than just being a glorified delivery system for 70, 80, 100 points actually is just really nice, because, like, a Devilfish, once it's done its delivery, it's just a burst cannon and 2 gun throws. It doesn't do anything. But now, if it's got fire support, or maybe it can, you know, use marker lights and counts as marker lighting the unit it fires, or It can be equipped with recon support to allow battlesuits to land nearby, which it used to be able to do. If you put a recon drone in it with Pathfinders, you can pull off some right old cheese. And I'm looking forward to it because, 40k is not about being a balanced game. I know people want it to be balanced, but cheesy thematic bullshit and jank is the way to play this game.
Absolutely.
Oh, and finally, we got to see about terrain.
Mm-hmm.
So, cover gives you a +1 armor save, as it does now. But if you already have a 3-up save, you don't get the boost, meaning you can never have a 2-up save in cover. That means that, for example, Space Marines camped in a building are not completely undislodgeable because they've got a 2-up armor save. Which is just nice because it means that actual building firefights benefit the light units. But to be honest, why would a Space Marine standing behind a barricade get an armor boost? Their armor's better than the fucking barricade.
Very true.
They are also simplifying terrain because there are currently 4 terrain categories and 12 different terrain traits. Now, there are 6 different categories. Craters give a cover boost to infantry and only infantry. Barricades create a charge debuff of sorts. You can charge and fight across them, and infantry that are not fully visible get the boost. Debris does... If you can't fully see it, you get cover. Hills, you get cover if you're not fully visible. Woods, you are never considered fully visible. You need true line of sight to see them, except for aircraft and towering models, which is, for example, Stompers and the like Imperial Knights, etc. Ruins, they have an armor penetration boost if you are firing from above. So if you're firing from above, because you've got the high ground, you get better armor penetration, which is a really nice bonus. And again, if you get any obscuring, then you get cover. So ruins only give a boost if you happen to be not outflanked on the high ground, because the high ground benefit will cancel out your cover benefit, which is really quite a nice combo. So no, they've simplified terrain to means you look at it, and then you just need to say, can I see the model? If yes, I can hit it. If not fully, they get a cover save, with a few exceptions. So no, it's interesting. And I think that it does simplify it down because, to be honest, we never used the cover system properly. We just said, okay, can we see them properly? No? Okay, they get a +1 from cover. That was it. We just stopped there because it was too much faff.
They're like, can you see him? No. All right then. Let's continue.
Yeah. So now, I've been talking with different people at Warhammer Club and around and about, and there's a lot of hype in our area for 10th because it's doing a lot of things that make our lives as club runners very easy, but it's also just common bloody sense. Because if the game's too bloated and hard to learn, or hard to play quickly because it's too bloated, then streamline it to make it run faster. Don't make it simpler, but make it run faster. The complexity of 40k is fine, but the speed of the game has been too slow, and so they're streamlining it, and I really approve with that.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very good way of people, keeping people's focus on the game. Especially nowadays when, the span of focus is very, 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 very small.
Indeed. Because I know I've seen instances of I'm going to do my movement phase. Okay, I'm going to go get a drink then. And they just go and they leave the table while their opponent does the movement phase because they've got nothing to do.
Yeah.
And then they come back and say, oh, it's my psychic phase. Well, I ain't got any denial, so just roll some 2d6s and I'll take my models off when you're done. Okay? Waste of a turn. And it actually, hopefully, will increase that interactivity. They say they want players to interact with every phase of the game and do more on your opponent's turn as well. So we'll see exactly how it pans out. But I'm really looking forward to playing 10th. I think they've really nailed on a lot of good ideas. I don't think they're all perfect, but everything they're saying makes a lot of sense from my experiences of 8th and 9th.
Yeah, it does. You explained it in a very sensible manner as well. So I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, that sounds good. Or, oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah. So no, I think for me, I'm really looking forward to the fact that I can put Farsight in a crisis squad again, which is going to be great for keeping him alive for more than 5 seconds.
Perhaps you should put also him on a vehicle or something and see what happens.
Can't do that. He's a battlesuit.
Damn it.
I will be trying Fish of Fury out again, where I can put Breacher teams in a Devilfish and, oh my, immediate disembark and lay down the Blitz. Yeah, please. That looks fun to me, combined with Pathfinder support. But I'm also really interested to try out some of the other stuff in terms of, like how the Psychic phase now works. I actually feel like, as an Orcs player, I want to get involved with the Psychic phase because there is no Psychic phase. I can just use it very easily without having to think about it, roll up a bunch of dice. I've got no stratagems to think about, or a lot less anyway. Mm-hmm. I've just got to get there and play the bloody game, which is just going to make things so much quicker and easier. And with the new weapon rules that are much quicker and conciser to learn, I'm really looking forward to seeing exactly how it shakes out for Tau, because +1 strength over a bolt gun is not going to cut it anymore. We'll see exactly how it comes out. I think there's going to be some really fun games of 10th. I think it's probably going to be less balanced.
No, because there's usually always going to be when a new version of it comes out.
Indeed. But a lack of balance does not necessarily mean a lack of fun.
Very true. Very true.
And I am very much looking forward to having fun, because I think GW have got... I don't know if this is a bad thing, but I think they've been listening too much to the competitive community in terms of we need a balanced game with constant point updates and rules erratas and things like that. And yeah, I agree, you've got to keep the game in check for competitive play. But at the same time, it makes it so hard for casuals to keep up because their points are constantly changing. The rules are constantly changing with little tweaks here and there. They're adding this, they're taking out that rule. You've really got to be on top of what's going on in the competitive scene to even play casually, unless you just want the game to be wrong. Whereas if they can just, accept there's going to be a little bit of jank, and maybe there's going to be a few busted combos that need to be nerfed, but they don't need to go in with such a fine tooth comb, constantly tweaking like every month. Yeah.
I think it's kind of like, as you just mentioned, if you want to get more people into the hobby, to play the games and buy the miniatures, etc., if you keep on changing the rules all the time, the newcomers are not going to be very interested in it, unfortunately. At least not all of them.
No, I think there's some who really get on board with that. And I think for a healthy, thriving tournament scene, you do have to be very much on top of your game balance, especially with their constant releasing new product. I get it, but MetaWatch would come and say, oh, we're adjusting this and we're making these changes. Right? Okay, so now I need to download another bloody errata just so that my army actually works the way it's supposed to for my quick knockabout game. And I know you could say, well, why are you even bothering checking the rules? Because that's the bloody principle.
Yeah.
Even as a casual, I don't want to play the game wrong.
Indeed.
I don't want to play it correctly and legally. So having to print out 17 different erratas per army because they're constantly errataing things and updating points values is a pain in the arse.
It is.
Sorry, it is.
As a person who has to, as her job to explain how the English grammar works, with its exceptions of exceptions, I know how horrible it is when it comes to, I have a lot of rules for you guys, and some of them don't even make any sense. Rem, you've been awfully quiet. How's your internet? Rem? I take that as a no for the internet.
Yeah, I take it as he's Oh well, I guess that just leaves us, which is a little bit awkward because this is the part where Rem normally reads as a story.
Very true. Where is the book club now? Do we have to tell stories about what we have been reading?
I haven't.
I haven't been reading anything 40k related. I've been on my Agatha Christie binge yet again.
Oh, fun. I mean, at least it's generally high quality stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very much into classics and, all sorts of crime stories. I'm just a huge fan of Agatha Christie. I'm there like, okay, Marple and Poirot and this and this and that. And like, if I may go on a tangent, Hugh frigging Fraser is such a good reader for any kind of audiobook, especially when it comes to Poirot, because have you watched the series, with David Suchet?
No.
Oh, a shame. Well, he plays Captain Hastings, a little bit of, a very, I wouldn't say slew-minded captain or something, but still like kind of being that second fiddle to Poirot's like, hey, I have an idea how things work. And he's just being a silly little goose all around. And I've gotten used to the fact, like, when I see the face of this man in the series, like, okay, now I know that some dumb shit is going to come out of his mouth. But as a narrator, he just has to, like, he has such a good voice for it. And he just moves it around slightly. I'm like, yeah, I totally believe that this is a 20-year-old girl who's now talking and not a middle-aged man.
That is impressive.
It is, like, of course, he doesn't sound like a 20-year-old girl, like, with his, like, voice or anything, but this kind of attitude that he has in the voice. I'm like, yeah, absolutely, this is a 20-year-old girl, and now it's a bumbling idiot of a captain, and now it's a frigging Belgian detective.
Yes, I can see the perks of having an author and a reader who's that good.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I never got on the audiobook train, and I don't know why. Oh, I think I do know why. The main reason is I read too fast. Like, the thing with audiobooks is, obviously, they're read at a pace that you can follow along with the story. But because, as you mentioned about 5 minutes ago, attention span of a gnat.
Yeah.
I find that I'm just listening to someone read a book, I'll probably end up reading ahead of them, because I want to read along. Because I might not be able to fully devote my focus, because I can't just shut the world out. I want to actually listen to the story. So I'll probably read along with it. But I read about 5 times faster than the narrator is going to read it to me. So, like, an audiobook takes about 14 hours for a lot of 40k literature, 12 to 14 hours to read. I will read it in 3.
How on earth can you be that fast?
Skimming.
True.
I speed read with a fair bit of skimming, and unless I get confused, I just keep going, unless I'm reading it for the podcast or something like that. So I can outread the author about 5 to 1, meaning that I just don't want to wait for them. Like, I can already keep track of the voices in my head of who's saying what and what's going on. And actually visualizing something is sometimes easier for me when I'm reading it than when I'm hearing it. Like, picture the scene, whatever. Okay, that's great. You can picture the scene for me. But if you read it out to me, I'm going to lose track of it. Whereas if I can keep flicking my head back up to keep checking what's going on, I can keep the scene clear in my head even if I'm moving on, because I haven't got a great attention and memory.
All right.
So, I don't know. I love the idea of audiobooks, and I think they're a great thing for people who prefer to get their literature in that way. I'm not knocking them. It just, for me personally, they're not my preferred way to digest books. I'd prefer to sit and read them, because then I can do it at my pace, not the pace that the narrator sets that's slow enough that you can process everything that's being said.
Yeah, absolutely understandable. Like, in contrast, I'm here, I want to do all kinds of things. Like, I want to draw, I want to go for a walk. For instance, I have to drive to work like 1 hour per, direction, so 2 hours per day. And I find it very easy to do something else and then just kind of focused on listening to the story. And I kind of like, because on the other hand, I'm a very, very slow reader. And for instance, if students of mine ask me, for instance, during the lesson, like, hey, Naerina, is this correct? And I just have to, come next to them, because I'm a very, very audio-based person when it comes to learning too. I'll at least mouth the sentence out loud to myself. Perhaps I don't use any words like per se, but I'm like, no. All right, yeah, that's correct. Or all right, yeah, you need to put something in there, because the audio input really helps me to focus on things. And that's why I'm like, when it comes to audiobooks, I'm like, absolutely, I freaking adore them. For instance, when I was at the university and we were doing a classics reading circle, and we had Mrs. Dalloway as a book, I listened to it as an audiobook, which was a very interesting experience because it was on YouTube, it was read by a computer, and Mrs. Dalloway, if someone has not read it, or has not read it, goodness gracious, English work. It is a book famous for being written in that, way of stream of consciousness. So listening to a computer voice like this kind of like, and then Mrs. Dalloway said that we had to do this and this and that. It was very, interesting, to say the least, but still I could manage to, keep track on who was thinking what, etc., etc. So for me, audiobooks are literally the thing that keep me, I can't really say reading because I'm not reading them, they are read to me, but keep me focused on the story. Whilst I can, for instance, if I find it inspiring, I can draw something related to it. Or if I go for walks, because I get frigging bored when I'm, walking around. If I have a story, I'm like, I've walked for, 5 kilometers and I didn't even notice.
Yeah, I get that. And I mean, with music, I'm the same. Like, I can't do things in silence. Like, I can, but I do find it very difficult if I'm on my own to work in silence. I just sit there and mark books or plan lessons or write up a report or whatever else I happen to be doing that day. If I'm sat there in complete silence just doing it and I've got to sit in silence, I do find it quite tricky to do what I'm doing. So I do like to have music on in the background. The problem is if it's something that isn't just background music that I can tip tap and sing along to because I know it or because it's catchy, if I actually want to listen to what's being said rather than just have it as blocking out noise and being something that I can just bop along to, I want to actually focus, and I can't really multitask well enough that I get distracted. Like if I have a YouTube video playing, like a video essay, for example, you don't need to watch a video essay. You just need to listen to them. But I will find myself still staring at the screen while the video essay is playing in my ears, even though I know there's nothing on screen for me to see. Because it means that I'm focused on that one thing. And I'd find the same with a book or an audiobook is I can't focus on something in my ear and something else that I've got to do properly.
Yeah.
So an audiobook I would need to focus on, and if I focus on it, I'll outread it, because if I'm just watching a YouTube video, like a video essay, I'll end up skipping 10 seconds here and there. Just skip ahead a bit, because they're just talking so slowly. I already know where the sentence is bloody going. So
you do realise that you can change the tempo.
I know. And then if you speed it up too much to the speed that I read at, it will just have...
Very true, very true.
So, no, I would really struggle with audiobooks as my way of taking them in. Not because they're bad or anything like that, just because they don't suit the way I operate. But I can see what you're saying in terms of, like, audio processing, because I am, and anyone who knows me will tell you this, I am a proponent of thinking out loud. Like, I think out loud constantly.
Join the club, Thierry, join the club.
There is no internal monologue sometimes. Like, if I've got a thought running through my head and I need to process it, I will talk. I won't talk to anybody. It will make no goddamn sense. I was like, and then that, and then what if I do that? And then, what about, that. Right, that.
Yeah, and you're just like, you don't have to say the whole lot of things. You're just like, and that. But if I do that, then, yeah, absolutely. But what if? But yeah, then no. But then yeah. And everyone else is like, all right. Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, I can have a conversation in an empty room.
Well, the best place to have a conversation by yourself in an empty room.
Yeah, and it's quite known among my colleagues at work because we have to plan practicals. We have to order our practical equipment because we do science. And literally, I will make a hand motion where I sort of wave my hand across the air like I'm hollow projecting my timetable in front of me and pointing at it and pointing, do I need a practical there? No, I'm doing that, I'm doing that, I'm doing that. I'm literally doing it in front of myself right now where I'm looking.
And I know exactly what you're doing because I do that too.
It's such a weird quirk, but I'm such a proponent of thinking out loud, and yet being told stuff doesn't work for me. I need to read it because I can't just listen and listen and listen because my brain can't stay focused on it.
You need to visualize things.
Yeah, exactly. So no, it's just really interesting. And I know normally this is the bit where Rem reads a book, but Rem's Wi-Fi's gone completely. He's not even in the call now.
I haven't gotten even a message. I usually get a message on Facebook or something like, yeah, my internet's down. Like, yep, he gone.
Yeah, he's gone. So we're filling up the books we haven't read with different ways of accessing literature, and I'm just talking a little bit about reading.
Yeah. Also, I think I've mentioned this like ages and ages ago, and a lot of times at that. Another way of practicing one's reading or listening or anything, or how to get through a book. Get a friend group. Who at least one of them has the book that you want to listen to or read to, whatever like floats your boat, and that one person reads it out loud. I do this with my friends on Discord, and the rest of us happen to be or the person, who's reading it usually doesn't have his or her headphones on, and is on a certain, text channel on the Discord, server. And we can just put them, write them something like, hey, we can't hear you if we, for some reason, can't hear them. And what the rest of us do, we play the GIF game. We have a channel on which we listen to the story and we just post GIFs. And we usually go one chapter at a time. And then the narrator checks in like, hey, did you hear everything all right? Like, yeah, we did. Who won the GIF game? And then the narrator has to go through the GIFs and just say like which one just hits the best. Right.
Okay. That's clever. I can see the appeal. I don't really teach language and reading that much. We do need to do literacy and all that, but I never really thought about that as a method in terms of it, because we don't often, obviously, you can't just sit in a Discord call at a secondary school, exactly.
True.
But no, that is quite interesting, because one of the things I remember when audiobooks became a thing, not necessarily for 40k, but just in general, was you're just giving kids another way to stick to their screens and not actually read. Like you're taking away the pleasures of actually reading a book, and
yeah,
I get it, but it's how we access our information. Some people are better with audio, some people are better visually, some people prefer to sound it out and talk about it, and others keep it to themselves. Everyone's got their own methodology for how they get on. And genuinely, I was at, just bring it back to hobby, I was at Warhammer Club the other day and I was painting a big model, and literally every 2 minutes I had a student come over to me and say, Miss, can you just check this? Miss, what's this rule? Miss, what's this do? Miss, what paint should I use? Miss, this paint's gone dry. And it was just like, I constantly had this model in front of me that I was working on. And I nearly base coated the whole Roman thing in one go. It was a full-on Demon Prince, and I nearly fully base coated it. But even then, every 2 minutes, I was having to stop and be like, no, this is the rule. No, your army's not balanced. No, hang on, think about this paint. Have you tried doing that? What technique are you using here? Have you rolled that dice? Can you stop playing that? Whatever it is you're doing, put your phone away. You're here to do some Warhammer, or whatever it is that you happen to be doing.
Yeah.
And I didn't need headphones because if I'd shut my headphones in, I'd have not been doing my job as a teacher. But I didn't need it because there was so much noise and so much constant chit chat that I could bounce off of and listen to that I didn't need it. But I didn't have to focus on it because I was focused on the model and I could just use it as background noise. It's weird.
Yeah, absolutely. You're kind of like entertained by the fact that you can listen to some of the conversations, or then just have it in the background and, playing like some white noise. That's what I do during the recess if I don't have the energy to go to the teacher's lounge. I'm just there sitting at my desk doing something. That something does not have to have anything to do with the, next lesson or something. But for instance, because we sometimes have double lessons and then we have recesses in between, some of the students stay in the classroom and they have chit-chats. For instance, last week I learned that horses can eat moles. Because I was listening in on chit-chat.
God. Yeah, it is. It's really interesting just how different people operate and how that then translates, because I'm trying to find a way to tangentialize this back to Warhammer.
I'm here like, oh my God, yeah, Warhammer podcast. Yeah, try to focus.
Yeah, but no, we're doing a snipe and whip, basically. But
indeed.
Either way, it's interesting with hobbyists because you can see these different things. We're talking about in a microcosm with audiobooks versus reading. And silence versus music and all that sort of stuff. But all these things, you think it with people's hobby as well. Like, there are some people who will find that painting is their distraction. So they can be having a full-on conversation whilst painting a model. And they can use it as a thing to keep them distracted from just having to focus entirely on this conversation. But other people who maybe can't do that or choose not to do that need to be absolutely focused. And if you're at a tournament or you're at a gaming event, I can imagine having to tune out the world while you go through your game and play out and execute your plan can be quite challenging. And I hate being disturbed when I'm playing. I don't mind when I'm painting, but when I'm playing, I need to concentrate.
Yeah,
so
you need
can
to
you please leave me
strategize.
alone? Yeah, can you please leave me alone? And even with the way we handle projects, I'm a butterfly. I'll ping pong flit around from different things. Like, if I went back to the last 10 models I painted, there's a Demon Prince, a battle suit, a Chaos Khorne Blood Warrior, a Chaos Marine, a Slanesh Archer, and a couple of Idenith. I've literally painted like 5 or 6 different projects in my last 10 models and just flitted around because I don't find it easy to focus on one job at a time and just stay with one project. If I'm really engaged, or I'm doing it for a series, yeah, I'll crank and I'll crank and I'll crank. But if I'm only getting time to hobby part-time, then I bounce around between projects. And I think as a piece of advice to hobbyists is have a side project. If you can afford it, have a side project. That you might be collecting that guard army you've always wanted, but just on the side, have some Mechanicus, or some Marines, or some Sisters, that you're just completely different to your guard. So when you just like, oh God, have I got to paint another 10 guardsmen? And you're like, actually, I can go paint those Celestians for a bit. And you go paint them, or maybe you paint one of them and say, okay, that was a nice little refresher, now go back to the guardsmen. Or you paint the whole squad and go, actually, I'm quite enjoying this. I'll get a Canoness and I'll get some basic Sisters. And then once that novelty wears off, you're like, okay, right, I've had my break. Let's get back to getting the guard done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have a side project if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with this because, for example, I have a very, very bad habit of if I have a, drawing, regardless of what the topic is, and this time the topic happened to be 40k, for I made the bridge of Scarlet Felicity, the flagship of my first ever TTRPG character in the 40k universe, my darling rogue trader, Shahira Bonner, and I had a hell of a time with this because I usually, dearie, I usually draw people. And I was like, okay, I want to challenge myself and I want to draw something else. Okay, I'll draw the bridge, like what it looks like. And I found some very good reference, pictures and, renderings, etc., photos. And then I started doing it and I just hated it because I'm not really I can't focus on doing something on several days on a row, and then I had to grade stuff and I was losing interest. I did some portraiture in between, continuing this piece. I have no idea how many hours I've put into this one, but, well, you guys are not going to, see it in the audience, but I'm still going to send this to Neve because, goodness gracious, it took a heck of a long time. And I'm so freaking proud of it. And my friend challenged me to put in more skulls than in the Rogue Trader, the TTRPG rule book cover, which has at least 48 of them. This one has, I think, 51 or 52, but that, most of the skulls are very, very small. And for some reason, Discord does not want to send it. I'm going to try it again because I'm bloody proud of it and I want to show it to you.
Yeah,
not sure if you saw it on my Twitter already, but
I possibly did. I don't check Twitter as much as I used to. I may well have done, or I may have just flicked because I was just speeding up through my news feed. So I'm not sure. Maybe I did. I'll go have a look another time if you can't get it through.
Yeah, go ahead. It should perhaps go through. Let's see. And of course it doesn't. Yes, it did. Excellent.
Yes, it did. No, that is a really impressive piece of work, and obviously
Thank you.
just at a glance, it's a really impressive piece of work that clearly took a lot of time and effort. And I could imagine doing this in one sitting would be...
could not.
Exactly. I don't know what it took to create the art that you did for me. In case you've missed that story, the female Tau art that I used on the thumbnail of my coming out video was done by Naerina months in advance.
Yes, it
as a little surprise. And to be honest, I should probably use it a little bit more, but there we go. Either way, that was done by Naerina, and I don't know how long that took, because I know when I sat with Arsenic Typhoon, who made my Lumineth and Daughter of Cain elven characters.
Oh yeah, that looks so good.
They were done in the space of a few hours, and I sat with them while they did it. Pretty much. I was on a Discord call for 4 hours, and they were pretty much done with the base layers and some of the highlights by that time. Because that was just how they operated. Everyone operates differently. Some people can just sit down and binge through a project and get done with it. Others need to bounce around and take their time, and that's absolutely fine. There's no right way to read. There's no right way to art. There's no right way to Warhammer. Whatever works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Wholeheartedly, agree with you. And if anyone ever, dear audience, says to you you have to do this before you do that, you have to do this, you have to do it in strict order. All right, if you're playing the game and it's the rules, yeah, to be sure. But if it's about painting or, any sort of miniatures, you can do it however you want.
Yep. And that is very true with me, because I am one of those heretics who does an undercoat. And
yeah, that is heretical.
I'd have never bothered... Oh, I have bothered with undercoating when I started, but genuinely, I spent as much time painting a model Chaos Black as I did actually painting it. So, well, not quite, but certainly in the early days before I learned what washes were, the only time I undercoat is if I'm doing a white undercoat for flesh, for elven flesh. That's it. Otherwise, I don't see the need.
Goodness.
The base paints that Citadel provides are good enough to adhere most of the time. If you're doing certain layers, yeah, okay, maybe you undercoat. But the base paints are good enough to adhere in one coat without them. Granted, I'm going to look at contrast because, to be honest, I don't have a photo of it. A pupil did a Flamespire Phoenix at club. I built it. I bought it off someone on Twitter months ago, and I built it, took it into club and said, someone come and paint this for me. And a kid did it only using the wash paints.
Oh, what? How?
We don't have contrasts, so we sprayed it white, and they just washed it with reds, oranges, and yellow washes, and created this amazing blended flame effect along the wings, and it was the sickest thing for their 5th model ever. And I was like, right, okay, I can see the appeal of contrast now.
Yeah, absolutely. Goodness gracious. To this darling little dearie who has done this, I want to see this model, and I want you to teach me.
Well, I'll certainly get a picture of the model easily enough. It's in my box on my room, so next time I'm in work and get the box out, I'll make sure to do that. But no, it is just a super effective model, and it was something that I'd always thought you could do, where you use blending, because when I did Techless, I tried to create like different layers of colour, like browns, yellows, oranges and whites on the wings of Selenar.
Yeah.
And to that end, all I did pretty much was block colours and then a little bit of washing around the edges to make them slightly blend. They don't blend at all. So, yeah, if you're able to do it using contrast paints and the like, it is a really, really effective technique. And it's a lot simpler than it looks if a 11-year-old child on their 5th model ever can do it.
Yeah. And now I want to paint miniatures. God damn it.
Yeah, that's relatable, and just never having time to paint miniatures. One of the perks of having a Warhammer club is you have a legitimate reason to sit at a desk and hobby for an hour and a half without anyone saying you're wasting your time, because I'm monitoring the club and dealing with the students, whilst also subtly painting half my army as quickly as I can.
I'm actually getting paid for this.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to... I'm hoping to have a game in the next couple of weeks where, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, I'm going to use my Shadow Sun for the first time. For context, I bought Shadow Sun in lockdown.
Why haven't you... in lockdown, fine.
Early lockdown.
Oh no, it's just been sitting there like, please use me at some point.
3 years.
Oh, goodness.
She has been painted for 3 years and has not been used because of how little 9th I got to play. And then when I started playing 9th, I was doing it in the context of teaching it. So it wasn't a place to pick out, a super awesome double fusion blaster self-jetpack battle suit. It wasn't the time. Now, though, I've got pupils who are good enough and have characters and monsters of their own. I'm going to get my old Farsight out for one last game before the new one eventually enters my life, because it's still not available anywhere unless you go to Scalpers and get Show and Shas on a board and play an actual game for the 9th edition with both of my Tau heroes for once.
That would be amazing.
I'm very much looking forward to it. I've already pretty much built the army in my head of what I'm going to run.
I hope you did it via your method of, and that, but no. But then when again, I could do that.
No, to be honest, I was walking home. But no, once I get Battlescribe out and actually start properly brainstorming, I will be thinking out loud.
Okay, fair enough. You'll have to record it at some point. I'm curious to hear what it sounds like.
No one wants to hear that.
It's
very weird. Like, genuinely, I was watching a video. It was a Yu-Gi-Oh video, and I picked up the game a little bit when the Master Duel game came out, and the person I was watching was playing through basically what had become my pet deck, in terms of like, I know this deck. And I know how it works, and it's one of the most historically complicated decks in the game. It's called DDD, for those who actually understand Yu-Gi-Oh! And he was working through it, and I literally looked at his hand, and I went, right, so what would I do in that situation? Because I know this deck. I go that, and then do that, or would I do that? Or if I do that, I can do that. and go, right, if I normal summon Cope, I can bin... this thing, I can bin that spell trap and then activate it engrave and banish that in order to summon this, but then I want to activate this enhanced to the fusion summon of that, but I could also special summon it that way, but if I do that I won't be able to do the fusion engrave in order to summon the next thing I need to get my combo going. And literally I was sat there in the bathroom just watching it out and just literally talking it out, and genuinely I came out of the bathroom and my husband just went, what was that?
It was that. If you do this or that, didn't you catch that?
Who are you talking to?
Myself. Are you sure you're not a commentator on any kind of sports?
Oh, when I was at school, people used to say my best job on the football team was to be the commentator. I'm not even making that up either. I was never very good at football. They were always like, "Oh, you should be the commentator." And it's like, for God's sake.
It's a valuable job as well.
I suppose. But no, it's weird how people operate, but also it's very interesting in different contexts.
I love it when people operate differently and then you just get to experience it and you're like, what the hell is going on? And then you're like, oh, you operate like this. All right.
Yeah, it is fun. And yeah, something to keep in mind when you're going into hobbying is just like, as Naerina said earlier, there is a rule book, but there is no rule book on how to be a hobbyist. Like, if you just want to pick the models that look cool and get tabled every game because you don't care, because you just want the models that look the coolest, fine. If you want to play the power gaming and don't mind buying a new book every month because it's the flavor of the week, then that's fine. You do you. If you're want to just make them look pretty, but also be good, and you want to balance up like what's good, how do I then make it look the best because I want to put it on display. That's fine too. If you want,
and you can ask new students or pupils like how they do it because they absolutely do things prettily.
Yeah. Or if you just want to be like, I read this in a book once. How do I recreate it? And then do it. Make a diorama based on a scene in a book or a character. That's what Raoul Coley's done. I was talking about them earlier with Boltgun. Because they've made a model of the Stern Guard on the cover of the box. Yeah. I've closed the tab now, so I'll go and find it. It's basically they've just converted a Stern Guard veteran to look like, the guy from the cover of Boltgun. Where's the article gone? Oh, it's there. Where is it? It's here. So that model I've just sent you is converted to basically match the cover art.
All right. So he did this.
Yeah.
Nice. Holy hell, nice.
Yeah, so if you just want to see something or hear about something in a book, whether you've heard it or read it, and want to go and just do something cool with it, then go and do something cool with it. No one will stop you. Like some of the stories I've heard as to why people are painting a model a certain way. It's like, oh yeah, they've been corrupted by darkness and they've got darkness sliding up their armor and eating their soul or something like that. Or like, yeah, I want this sword to be like made of crystal, or something like that, or whatever reason they give. Just hearing the reasonings behind all the things they do is really, really cool to why they're making a paint scheme a certain way. Like,
yeah,
I've got, like, for example, I'm trying to think of an example of an armor where I've done that. My Tau. Because I play Fast Enclaves, yet my Tau are blue. They should be red. Why are they blue? Because they're from the water world of Salas Hay. So I paint them blue to be replica and green clothing, blue armor, green clothing to give them almost aqua camo because they live in a water world.
That makes sense. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah. It was just something that came to my mind. I still do the 8 in red because they're the 8, but everybody else gets blue.
Yeah. It's like, well, you come from here, so you wear this because it makes sense.
Yep, exactly.
And that's, I think that's the best thing when it comes to, for instance, painting miniatures or remodeling them or something like that, that you can use the lore that you've created for your unit or for whatever it is and be like, yeah, I want there to be that, different kind of, or different coloured suits, or the darkness seeps in from everywhere, or you just happen to have a crystal sword, because why not?
Yeah, and as Mama Homebrew herself, you've clearly seen a lot of this.
Ooh, I have indeed, and there are certain ones that I really, really enjoy. Of course, for instance, as a person who really enjoys Tolkien, if there's some Tolkien references, I'm like, oh, giddy, yay! But nevertheless, like, if I see something creative, like, put out in text form, or in any form, regardless of that, but in case of a homebrew of the week, what I usually see is the text, because someone has to read it. Usually it is me. I find it very fascinating, like, how did they come up with this? And I kind of just enjoy the ride. Of course, if there are, like, words from, well, I don't know if it's supposed to be said Tagalog or whatever, from languages, for example, that I don't know how to speak, I usually, from time to time at least, try to listen to, like, if I recognize the language, okay, it's this one. How do they say it in this language? And how do I do this? And I think the most weird language combo that I had to do was English and Finnish. Because as a native Finn, of course I know how to say things, but I'm like, do I say this how I would say it because this is a Finnish word? Or do I just try to say it with an English accent?
Oh, God. Yeah, I am the same with French because, like, I can't say certain words the way the English say them. Like, when I hear croissant for croissant, ow, it hurts.
Yeah, that is why you have, like, in Finnish, croissant is croissantti, because it has the t ending over there. It's just like, okay, this is something very, very Finnish, and because you just say it like it's written, it does not, like, hurt as bad as croissant.
Yeah, sorry, America, but your ability to use the English language is all over the show, and I feel comfortable saying that. American English is weird, and I'm aware that hello, the ones
Well, you're from England, so...
Yes, but also, when we talk about Arkansas, can we talk about aluminum? Where did the second I fucking go?
Yeah, fair.
I'm aware we have Norwich, Worcester, Leicester.
Yeah,
all
like,
these...
what the hell? And they're like, Worcestershire. No, Worcester. Sure. All right then. Fair enough. Fair.
Yeah, it's like that scene from Shrek 3.
Yeah.
No, it's daft. I know the English language is horrendous, but it's because it's such a linguistic mess. It's made of all sorts of different languages, Scandi included.
I love the fact that the language, more and more tangents, we're proper snipe and whipping over here. And I like the fact, I adore it, that, for instance, there's a place called Kexby or something in the UK. The B comes from bu, which in Swedish means village. And then there are words like egg that apparently have also some sort of Nordic, origins. And then comes, I think it was it 1066? Anyway, 1066 or something like that. The Norman Conquest. Then everything turns French for some odd reason, and because of the peasants, took all the kind of meat to the, royalty or the nobles. Of course, this is on the real French accent. That's why we have pork and beef and stuff, because it was French, and because people wanted to talk in French because the king spoke in French.
There's a video on the channel called Oversimplified about...
Oversimplified, I love it.
Yes, the English language when the Normans came along. So pork and beef and things like that. Yes, that's the English name, the Anglo-Saxon name. Mutton and the names they were served. Oh no, cow and pig become beef and pork. That was it.
Yeah.
Our language is such a mess because, well, we were Celts and then the Romans came along and kicked them out and we got rid of them. And then we had some Germanics and we got rid of them. And then we had the Vikings and we got rid of them. And then we had the Saxons and then they got thrown out. And then we had the French and then we got rid of them. And it's just like, our language is a fucking mess.
I love it.
It's one of those, it's got so many weird conventions. But speaking of like Kexby, there's loads of them. Like there's places like Derby, Denby.
Yeah.
And all these different places that are just like that. And you've got loads of buries and boroughs and all of these different things. It is really interesting to see how languages evolved. And yeah, I don't know. It's a random ramble. And seeing what 40k does with Gothic, how there's all these Latin sounding words. If you want a way to piss people off, by the way, as in literacy, just ask them to state what is the group of people that who go around recording things for the Imperium. Like, it's written Remembrancer. There is no...
I'm here like, Remembrancer? What?
But everyone goes, remembrance. They were so insistent on correcting it's remembrance. It's like, no. And then I would say Skitarii, because Skitarius, Skitarii. That's how Latin fucking works.
Yeah,
and
but Skitarii, and then you're like, what?
Legio, legiones. They're the Latin words.
Yeah, and then down here, like Legio Astartes.
It's legiones. It's like, no, it's not. That's just the English bastardization of it. Are we doing Latin or are we doing faux English Latin? What are we doing here? And I know it's such a petty hill to die on. I'm very aware it's a petty hill to die on. But I will call them the Legio Custodes and the Legiones Astartes until I'm blue in the face, because that's how it's supposed to be fucking pronounced. And,
well, now to introduce a potato, but for 40k, Tyranid.
Oh, Remleiz. It's a good job Remleiz is not here, because you'd have just got him to leave.
Yeah!
Oh, God.
I still remember when the official pronunciation guidelines for RBTs came out. I was like, no, honey, no.
Of all the ways you could have fucked it up, you picked that one.
Indeed, James Workshop, where you high when you were thinking of this?
Yeah, and don't get me started on fucking Gilliman.
Ooh, what? You don't appreciate Rowboat Girlyman?
No, I don't appreciate the fact that it's a reboot. There's no accent on the fucking E.
Yes, indeed, but it is not French, it is Pig Latin.
Yeah, but it's reboot. That's how it's fucking spelt. It's spelt like that. If you want the E sound or the A sound, put a fucking accent on. Gilliman was that posh. Put a fucking accent on it.
Very true. Which reminds me, is it supposed to be Cicatrix Maledictum or Cicatrix Maledictum? I don't.
Cicatrix.
Excellent. I've been saying it correctly. Wonderful.
Like cicada insect, I suppose is the reference point. Like cicada insect.
Yeah, I know those little creatures.
Yeah, but no, it is absolutely hilarious watching linguistics run into Warhammer. And
just die there. Glorious, or not even so glorious death. It's just like, as we say in Finland, if we want to just translate it, directly into English, it was just taken behind the sauna.
Yeah. I still remember it was a good 20 episodes ago with Remleiz, and like, 40k is where physics goes to get shot.
Yeah, and linguistics.
And linguistics joins it with the second barrel. It's absolutely hilarious just watching people just fall over. No, that's scientifically impossible. It's got a separate parallel dimension where people reach in with magic powers and shoot mind bullets. I am one of those people who really wants to learn about the science behind plasma weapons and railguns and all this shit. And yeah, I will do that. But there is a line where I'll go, okay, they've got an anti-grav tank. That's bollocks. That doesn't work. That just, well, it does, there's a way that it works, but it doesn't work the way that you think it does. It's just utterly piff. And it's hilarious. And
it is.
Genuinely, I really remember fondly the very brief Tactica Tutorialis series I did, where I did the science behind the las gun and the plasma gun and the rail gun. I only did 3, but the episode on the las gun where we talked about how much energy was in a las gun bolt or something like that, it was just hilarious.
It's kind of don't take the game too seriously. After all, even though there's only war in the grim darkness of 40k, it is just a game.
It's only a game. Why you have to be mad?
Indeed.
God, that's an archaic meme. That is an archaic meme. They've had that in the vaults of the administratum that is my brain.
And now, everyone's like, what are they on about? What are we discussing? What?
No. Genuinely, today I was watching a video and I nearly got it wrong immediately. A fucking avocado came on the screen. I immediately got that free Shavakadu vine from 10 years ago.
Oh god, that's a classic. I was just about to say, was it just avocado? Thanks!
That's the other one, yeah, that's the other one. Oh, God. Anyway, I think
Should we do questions?
I think we'll find one. We'll find one, because there's already, we've got about 10 minutes to sort of official time.
Yeah, I think we have, in total, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 questions in the latest podcast comment section.
Right, I'll ask this one. If you could create a Warhammer Quest game, where would it be? And don't just say Mordheim, that would be too easy.
Of course not, of course not. That's why we have Kill Team.
So, for context, Warhammer Quest is those sort of a group of heroes going into a location with lots of hordes of weak enemies and bosses that you dungeon crawl your way through.
Does it have to be a miniature game?
Yes.
Damn it. Because I have too many ideas for this. Space Hulk, but without the basic enemies that you have there. Because I was writing and this is very kind of personal and kind of very I'm tooting my own horn here. I was writing a story about our Dark Heresy Campaign 2 group going on a mission on which there was there's this, spaceship that came into this system and just came here, did not warp or anything, just came here somehow, just find out what the hell is wrong with it, and then just bring some sort of new kind of enemy in, and just having not Space Marines there, but actual, either people from a rogue trader ensemble or just acolytes or something that, that, okay, I'm just a human. And there's something in there. In my story, it was some sort of plant kind of hybrid zombie-like creatures, but still some sort of, xenos meets humans meets mutation meets something or other. But still, I would really love the fact that there were humans there and not, kind of these super soldiers.
Yeah, that makes sense. Given that the Imperial Navy breaches exist, that's actually not a bad idea. I think for me, they already have games like this with Silver Tower and Cursed City, but I would be really interested. We've done it with Undead and we've done it with Chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Why not do something where it's not just about fighting through waves of endless mooks? What about, for example, what are they called? The Misty Mountains. Not those ones. No, not the Misty Mountains. Carragate Peaks. That's the one from Old World.
Mm-hmm.
Which was an old dwarf hold that became the site of a 3-way mega duel between dwarves, goblins, and Skaven. And you, almost like you're fraying The Hobbit, you've got a group of dwarves led by their king going back in to try and depose Queek Headtaker or Skarsnik and retake Carragate Peaks. Fighting their way through goblins and Skaven to fight their way through, but they're not just interested in you. If a goblin unit is distracted by a stone being thrown and runs into a Skaven, those two are going to have a scrap, and you might be able to just get on by, saving your fighters from a potential shot. And then when you get to the boss fight, you've got ideas of cave-ins that might suddenly block your path. The fighting's so vicious that it causes a tunnel to collapse, and then the enemy hero gets to slink away, and you don't get to complete the campaign. You might win, but it's a hollow victory because they'll be back.
Yeah. That's so much better than mine. James Workshop, you're listening?
Oh, if they do Warhammer Quest again for the Old World, Carragate Peaks will be a fun place to go. Or Khemri with the Tomb Kings. That could be hilarious.
Oh, yeah, let's have a sneaky little tomb adventure, or not.
Or not. Yeah. Anyway, I think we will call it there for the simple reason of I'm hungry. And we've literally done about 40 minutes of tangential waffling.
like, Rem, are you there? Okay, you're not. Tangent time.
Yeah. Normally, we're a lot more organised, and I feel a lot more organised, but because I've not had time to read anything and everything else, I've just okay, I'm just going to wing this a bit. And to be honest, I really enjoy winging it and just rambling.
Yeah, I love it
winding
too.
ramble to nowhere.
Yeah, and I love the fact that we kind of bring it back together to 40k, and then we just like go on another tangent, and we're like, yeah, 40k. But then again...
Yeah, that does happen. Anyway, that was episode 172 of Adeptus Podcastus. We do hope you enjoyed it. Leave your comments down below. If you have any questions, please do let us know with the word question, and we will endeavour to answer them if we don't get distracted next time. In the meantime, that was Remleiz from 40k Theories. This is me from Tactica Imperialis.
And this is Naerina from 40k Theories.
And we will see you, hopefully with working internet, next time. Goodbye.
Bye.